happened? With this being my first video on this channel, I wanted to quickly go over why I feel so strongly about the gaming space before I start ranting about the things I've grown to dislike over the years. I have been playing video games for as long as I can remember. Growing up, I would watch my dad and my brother play games, and all I could think about at the time was wanting to play the games that they were playing. And fast forward to today, I'm still playing games and enjoying the games that I play. But I have 3 issues with the gaming space that are seemingly getting worse as time goes on in my eyes. Those 3 being shitty development studios and publishers, game journalism, and what I call the dungeon. So before I dive into certain development studios and their publisher counterparts, I can't believe I have to say this, but I want to make this abundantly clear. This might sound crazy, but it is their job to sell me on a product. They have to convince me to give them money. It is purely transactional. Now, you can have a healthy relationship and a community with your customers and have built player trust and everything could be cherry. The easiest example for me is From Software. I love their games, dude, and I trust them to make good games. I don't have to scour the internet and watch 5 different reviews to justify me buying a $70 game. For example, right, if Miyazaki told me to eat cow shit, if that means I can play Bloodborne 2, then I'm diving in and licking my fucking plate clean. That's what maxed out player trust is in my eyes. I pre-order their games every time because I know what I'm buying. A game with great art direction, fantastic lore underneath it, and most importantly, a fun gameplay loop that they have used for years, only tweaking certain systems to make it fresh with each release. And really, they only did that with Elden Ring on a major scale, and Elden Ring is one of my favorite games of all time. This is how it's supposed to be. Devs make a good game, they put it out on the market, people buy it, companies make profit. Ideally, that's how smooth it should be, but everything's not always perfect. I get that. Unfortunately, a lot of games nowadays, they launch with many types of issues, whether that's like optimization, server issues, bugs, etc., all that kind of stuff, right? Now, in these cases, which is how it is for most games now, the devs should be responding by gathering things like player feedback, making changes to please the customer, and rinse and repeat until there's an overwhelmingly positive response from their customers, right? Most devs do exactly that. I mean, look at No Man's Sky. Pretty mid when it came out. Devs kept putting out free updates, and then it became the game it is today. The most recent example that I can think of, Lords of the Fallen. Dude, Lords of the Fallen dropped, the first one, and it was like alright. And then the second game dropped, and it was pretty shit. And then they released this big 2.0 update where you can play with a friend for free. All they have to do is just download the friend pass, and then they don't even have to own the game, and you guys can just play seamless co-op right then and there. And they just made a whole bunch of improvements with the sound design, with the movement mechanics, with the combat, everything like that. They took player feedback and they kept improving their game slowly over time until what it is now, and people are loving it. There's an overwhelmingly amount of positive reviews on Steam compared to the mixed reviews when it first came out, and that's how it should be. Now, when devs don't follow that formula, and they essentially don't do their job, they make excuses to not do it. This game isn't made for you. You are not the target audience. How many times have you heard that when you're looking at a game and you give constructive criticism on the game and say, well, you know, this is cool, but I think, you know, it'll be better for this, and then maybe, you know, I'll buy the game if it was maybe changed in this way. And majority of the people want that. They have that same opinion about a game, but then when you're told that it's not made for you, you know, as someone who's labeled as the consumer for these products in this space, when I'm told something like that, I just simply won't buy the game. I'll take my money elsewhere and I'll buy a game that I feel like is worth my money. It's that simple. So now that we have the obvious out of the way, I just want to give you guys at least my list of development studios that has lost my trust over the years, and they make me not want to spend their money in general. Easiest and most recent example is Ubisoft. They have pretty much flipped my switch off when they stated that we should get comfortable with not owning our games. That immediately turned me off as a customer. And seeing Assassin's Creed Shadows, being a big fucking dork myself when it comes to like Japan and being a weeb and loving anime and stuff like that, I just looked at that game and the combat just looks really shitty. It just doesn't look too fluent. I'm not a fan of the RPG mechanics that they've been doing with the whole levels above a player or an enemy's head and not being able to kill things instantaneously unless you turn on a setting, which is pretty whack in my opinion. And then the biggest thing is microtransactions and a rotating daily and weekly quests section in a single player game. Like, you have things in your game where people can buy, where it unlocks the map, it gives them gear, You can buy resources for your base and stuff like that. It's just so bloated, and the map on top of it is just seeming like it just seems so fucking big. I haven't played the game. I didn't buy it because money's tight, right? I'm not gonna buy a game where I just know I won't like it to its full potential. I just know I wouldn't like it, you know? And I see Ubisoft do this shit, and I just don't like it. I'm just not a fan. I mean, like, Rainbow Six Siege is okay. You know, I'm no saint. I play PvP, 5v5 games with my friends, you know, maybe buy a battle pass here and there, right? But even then, it's just not what I feel like the majority of people want. And Siege is doing really well. I think Siege is probably the only thing that Ubisoft has at this point, which is not okay when they have a plethora of IPs that they can work off of. And I'm actually really glad they haven't been making any new Splinter Cells as of late, because I'm genuinely concerned how a Splinter Cell game would be if it came out in today's time, like 2025 and forward, right? I just don't want to see that, and Ubisoft essentially lost me as a customer pretty much when they said that we shouldn't be able to own our games. I mean, look at the crew. The crew servers are going down, and they're not releasing a patch with an offline mode. Racing games, literally, at least to me, I play them with AI. I don't even like playing with people when it comes to racing games. I just like sitting there, driving a car, driving around, having a good time. Maybe I'll put on some music, just sit there and vibe out. And that's what most people just want to do. Most people that work these like 9-to-5 jobs, they come home and they just want to sit down, grab a brew, man, you know, maybe order some food, you know, whatever the case is. And they just want to sit down, escape reality for a little bit, and just enjoy a video game. When you make games like Assassin's Creed Shadows, where you're just throwing just so much shit at somebody's face, they're going to sit there and they're going to be turned off by it. They're not going to want to play the game because there's so much to do. You got to go collect knowledge points to level up your skill tree and all that kind of shit. I'm just not into it. I just don't want to do that. There's games that fulfill that purpose, right? I call them podcast games, where typically it's a free-to-play game, and I log on and I do my dailies and I play the game. Essentially just an MMO, right? I log on, make my character, do quests, do dailies, play repetitive shit, but I enjoy it because I'm in the state where I just want to play a mindless game. And there's games for that. There's plenty of games where you can do that, and that's totally fine. I do it myself. I throw on a podcast, throw on some music, talk to my friends on Discord, and I'm just sitting there mindlessly playing a game. But when Ubisoft makes Assassin's Creed Shadows, in my eyes, a podcast game, that's not what Assassin's Creed is supposed to be. They're supposed to be thrilling assassin action games where you're involved and invested in a story with these characters, and you're playing through the campaign, you're doing your thing, and you're invested. That's essentially what I'm saying. I'm kind of rambling about it, but Ubisoft is doing that with their single player games, and it just doesn't mesh well, and I just don't like it. Just full honesty, don't like it. Ubisoft is pretty shit. I don't like Ubisoft. It's the same thing with these other companies. Like another one, Activision, easily. You know, they've been making stale CODs for so long with more of a focus on their skins and microtransactions, to the point where they've been at a slump. Like BO6 released, and everybody was hyped. Everybody was like, oh, dude, another COD, me included. You know, I'm sitting here like, you know, fuck it, I'll buy another COD, right? You know, I'm part of the problem. I get that, but that's kind of why I'm starting to express myself. And, you know, we're seeing these reoccurring trends, and I'm kind of getting sick of it. Like with COD, right? BO6 came out, a whole bunch of people were playing it, everybody was loving it. Nuketown 24/7 came out, and grinding, you know, camos and all that shit. Zombies was decently fun. Overall, pretty decent game when it released. Now, fast forward to where it is now, COD always has this peak playership, or like player numbers, when the game releases, and then it dips like 2-3 months immediately after. And that's been happening with every COD for like the last 5 years. And what does Activision do? What do? They're desperate, right? So what do? They have Warzone. Okay, guys, what do we do with Warzone? Our last resort, we bring back Verdansk, and hoping to bring back players so they can have a consistent flow of like player numbers and money flowing in with people buying microtransactions and all that. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't really looked into it. I really care about COD anymore in that sense. So I don't know if people are liking that Verdansk is back, or if it was like a little honeymoon phase that it was back and then now they're bored of it again. I'm not entirely too sure. In all honesty, I kind of gave up on COD. Just in general, you know, I didn't even play the BO6 campaign. I just did the multiplayer and play zombies with my friends and stuff like that. COD essentially just turned into like a brainless game for me, which it kind of always has been. Don't get me wrong. It's always just been an FPS game where you get on, play with your boys, have a good time, and that's it. But it feels like COD doesn't last that long in terms of having a good time with your boys, you know what I mean? Like, it just gets stale a lot faster than old CODs, you know? And that's how I feel about Activision. Now, with Bungie is probably my biggest disappointment. I grew up watching my brother play majority of the Halo games, you know, 1, 2, 3, ODST, and then, you know, when I had more of a, you know, when I grew up a little bit, you know, I technically, like, Halo Reach was like the first game that I owned for like my own console, so I guess I can tell like how young I am, right? I'm a young buck, 23 years old. But, you know, I still loved the older games and I played them on my off time. But, you know, watching my brother play as Master Chief in like Halo 2 fighting the Covenant, it was fantastic, dude. Bungie was insane and their gunplay is fantastic. You know, when Destiny 1 released in 2014, I was sitting there and I haven't played a full-fledged, like, quote-unquote MMO light in my life, right? Like, I watched people play WoW, family members play WoW. I kind of dove into, you know, shit like Wizard 101 when I was younger, right? But Destiny for me was like my first sort of MMO type game because I was only on console at the time. I didn't build my own PC until maybe the end of middle school, beginning of high school. So Destiny for me was insane. Being able to create my character, get like this loot, go on missions with my friends, do 6-man raids with these mechanics and shit where we struggle and we argue with each other. And overall, Destiny 1, at its core, was a pretty mid-game, but it had this sense of discovery and this mystery to it where me and my buddies, we just wanted to learn about it, you know? And we wanted to learn about the world, the lore, and everything like that. Like on the moon, when you're driving around on the moon in Destiny 1, and you see these green crevices, these cracks just like in the floor, and they're like protruding and just like opening up, and like this green light is just coming out, and you're wondering what the fuck is down there, you know what I mean? And we don't figure out until, you know, Crota came out and we did the Crota raid. But it was just that sense of discovery for Destiny 1 and just the community around it where it was just a fantastic time and I had a blast. And so I love Bungie. Like, Bungie at its core, they have made so many games where I made so many memories and where I have made also so many friends in that sense. And I love Bungie and I want to keep loving them, but what they've done to Destiny 2 and where I have a lot of concerns with Marathon, you know, it's a lot, right? And I'm not even going to get into them as a company, like the CEO, like buying luxury cars and like kind of like Tua in the face of his employees. You know, that in itself is pretty fucking lame. But when it comes to like the games, Destiny 2 was all right at launch. It was like decent. I was playing it. It was okay. But when they started taking away content, like Forsaken is probably one of the best expansions in that game. And then Bungie was just like, yoink, you can't play none of the content no more, and we're going to be sunsetting weapons. So all of the cool stuff that you grinded for like 2 years ago or a year ago, you're not going to be able to use it. Also, by the way, here's 30 messages when you log into the game trying to sell you on shit in the Eververse shop. Please buy it. We need it. We're desperate. Also, look at this new content that we're dropping. 2 new dungeons. Holy shit, I'm hyped. New armor, new guns to grind for. Oh, by the way, you have to buy some dungeon keys, both sold separately, or you can buy the big pass where you can get an entire year's worth of battle passes and the dungeons and the expansion, but only one expansion. The one expansion comes with all that, but next year you're gonna have to do the same shit. And I'm sitting there like, dude, these guys are trying to fucking rob me, right? I'm like, Destiny 2 at its core is a fun game. Bungie does it best. Fun gunplay, you know, good combat, cool mechanics for what they went with compared to Halo to Destiny. You know, you're a space wizard, you're a titan, you're a hunter, gotta throw your knives and throw a sun and a void and nova bomb. Really cool stuff conceptually, but the execution was just so shit. And it's so sad for me to say that like Bungie is in that list of studios where I consider them on that downward spiral, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be going up from where they're at, right? And with Marathon, you know, I'm probably going to make an entire video on Marathon and my thoughts about it, but just a quick little side note about it, you know, Marathon being only an extraction shooter for $40 with a battle pass and microtransactions as well is just an immediate turnoff for me. Like I said, these companies have to sell me from the get-go. So really great cinematic trailer, by the way, like fantastic cinematic. It was like cool. The character design, but in terms of like the feel, very like Kojima inspired in my eyes, right? Really great cinematic. I liked it. But hearing the details about the game, I'm sitting here like, I'm a really big fan of extraction shooters. I love Tarkov, but when they're essentially streamlining it, when they're streamlining it and trying to take away friction from that genre of game, I'm a little and then Bungie's past history and their abuse, you know, I'm very skeptical. I'm definitely gonna have to wait until like the beta drops and everything like that, but that's a matter for another time. I will definitely make a video on Marathon sometime in the future, maybe closer to release, maybe when I can get my hands on the game and I can actually start critiquing it more, rather than just speculation. But that's Bungie. Bungie, I loved them with all my heart. They've lost me over the years. It's really hard to love them with what they're doing. And, you know, I only have like a couple others, like Blizzard. I mean, Blizzard's just ass, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not really gonna yap about Blizzard too much. I mean, Overwatch is shit. Diablo Immortal was a joke. In my eyes, I mean, I played WoW. I mean, not a lot, you know. WoW came out before I was even fucking born. So I'm not really having like too much of a... I don't really have too much of an opinion. You know, I played a little bit, did some like mythic dungeons and shit like that. You know, I think I started playing WoW around like Mist of Pandaria was like when I first played the game. But even then I was like so fucking confused because I was like the first like MMO that I actually played. So I was just running around killing shit, doing quests. So I can't actively critique Blizzard in all honesty. But, you know, a lot of people that I do trust when it comes to reviews, you know, and just the gaming in general, you know, a lot of people aren't really too happy with WoW. You know, granted, Classic, you know, I think saved it because a lot of like you old heads really love Classic and you guys really want to play vanilla WoW, and there's no problem with that. You know, I played Classic for a little bit when Season of Discovery came out. It's pretty cool. You know, WoW is just one of those podcast games that I can't really complain about because I'm not really in that community too much. But things like Overwatch, I played Overwatch a lot when it first released. It was pretty cool, being the hero shooter that it was. Overwatch 2 definitely killed the game. It's just not great. Marvel Rivals has Overwatch on its knees and is being actively cucked while the player base is loving Marvel Rivals, and Overwatch is just sitting in its corner with its 5 players that will defend it until it dies. Because, don't get me wrong, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I'm also able to look at something and say it's ugly, and that's just my opinion. And Overwatch 2 is extremely ugly in terms of the game. Like, when I say ugly, I'm not talking about visually, I'm talking about how it plays. Well, visually to a sense as well. But Overwatch 2 is just, it's trash. I don't like it. That's really all I have to say about Blizzard. I just know Blizzard isn't great. From my experience, my little experience with them, wasn't a good time. You know, other people who were lifelong fans really felt betrayed, which sucks. Now, I want to dig into Nintendo just for a little bit before we move on. Nintendo is not on the same path as Ubisoft and Bungie, at least right now, in terms of like the downward spiral that they're going in. But I haven't been a Nintendo fan in a pretty long time, in all honesty. Particularly with Pokemon. Pokemon was a game that I really loved playing. The last Pokemon game I probably bought was X and Y in 2013 or 2014 or something like that on the 3DS. That was pretty much the last Pokemon game that I bought. I know there was a couple that were pretty decent after that, but the newer ones that have come out in recent years, I just look at them and I just have no urge to buy them and play them. You know, I bought my Switch to pretty much play Breath of the Wild and like maybe a handful of other games, and Pokemon was just not one of them. You know, Pokemon has went this direction where I'm just not a fan of. I feel like a lot of regular people, regular consumers aren't a fan of it as well. there's a lot of Nintendo fanboys that will die on a hill. Same with, Blizzard, Bungie, Activision, Ubisoft. A lot of people who love these companies no matter what they do, and they will die on the hill that they're standing on. And I get that. I understand. Like I said before, it's if you like your game, you like your game. But me personally, I just haven't liked Pokemon as of recently. And I'm not a fan of what Nintendo's doing with, these patents and trying to get into legal struggles with the people that make Power World and, trying to mess up their flow there. Power World's fantastic. Power World is the best example of using a formula that players loved and have spent years playing, and they took that formula, they threw their own little spice on it, they innovated it, and they made it the game that it is, and Power World sold millions of copies, has really cool updates that are coming out for free. They're just doing fantastic, and it sucks that Nintendo looks at this, and it's almost predatory where they're like, they gotta pounce on it and get rid of it so they can keep monopolizing on, this type of genre of game, and it's pretty unfortunate, and I just genuinely don't like it. I mean, Warner Brothers does the same thing. They have a patent on that Nemesis system. That's not cool. I'm not a fan of patents in general. I think the gaming space is meant to take inspiration from other people and other work, implement it in your own product, and expand off of it, or have your own twist on it and stuff like that. Like, if we had patents for every single thing, and if these studios had patents for every single thing, if they could at least patent certain systems, we probably wouldn't have half the games that we currently have. There would be such a monopoly on it, and it would just fucking suck, and there wouldn't be variety. It would, it's like eating the same food every single day, and you just get sick of it. So Power World takes this, tries to do something new, they succeed in it, a lot of good feedback from a lot of people, and Nintendo sees it, and they're like, nah. Thankfully Power World is chilling as far as I know. It doesn't look like anything too bad's gonna happen to him. I think Nintendo's actively trying to come up with a whole bunch of new shit to try to get him for it, kind of like a gotcha moment. But I don't think they'll be able to succeed, in all honesty. I'm just not a fan of that. I think Nintendo's pretty scummy for that, in all honesty. They haven't put out a good Pokemon game, in my opinion, in a little over 10 years, or maybe coming up to 10 years. So they've lost me in that sense. And everything with the Switch 2 that came out, man, oh my god, the whole physical digital pricing, whatever, 80 digital, 90 physical, or I'm not sure if they changed it. I think I read somewhere recently where they said they're going to keep it 80 on both sides, or 70 digital, 80 physical, or something like that. And I'm just not a fan. And Nintendo with Switch 2, they're sitting there like, guys, you can talk with your friends and video chat and talk to people while you're actively playing a game. And they're acting like this is this big revelation when I was 9 years old on my Xbox 360, getting called every slur in the book on Modern Warfare 2. I'm used to that. I've been interacting with people over voice on video games for majority of my life. I already know how that's like. They're coming out with these features and think it's this crazy thing when it's not. And they just don't produce just good games, in my opinion, almost anymore. Mainly Pokemon. I love Pokemon, okay? I've loved Pokemon for so long, and it's just a shame that I won't force myself to buy and play the games. It's just, I just won't do it. And it sucks. Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild is pretty decent. I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom yet. Super Smash Bros. Is always just a fun couch game to play with a whole bunch of homies, if they're at the house. I don't really have too many complaints about it. It's just always been one of those just social games that I've been playing. Same thing with Mario Party and Mario Kart. It's mainly just the business side of Nintendo that I have issues with. They just really just don't sell me on a lot of things, and I just don't like a lot of the things that they do within their company. It's just not really too good in my eyes, and it turns me off a little bit. Same thing with Bungie and Activision and Ubisoft and all those guys. They just turn me off. These companies have been really turning me off. I think the only companies that get me genuinely excited is, oh fuck, I don't know, From Software. From Software, I mean, Square Enix, I don't know. Just a lot of these companies just don't get me excited. They don't get me excited when I see a trailer or an announcement. I don't have that excitement that I used to have let's say 10 years ago, and I'm not saying this because it's like, oh, dude, it's like nostalgia, you're just wanting to play like that. No, I don't want games to go back to how they were, okay? I want games to keep being new and innovative and fresh, but I want them to be good. Like, I'm tired of the laziness. It feels so lazy in my eyes. Granted, I don't develop video games, and I know it's not every developer's fault. It's mainly these guys at the top of the ladder that are making these decisions, and a lot of these developers just go into work, they get told to do something, all right, man, let me do this type of code, let me model this thing, let me go on Blender, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They do their job and they go home, right? And most developers are fine, you know, they're just doing their job, and they just happen to be making a shit game. You know what I mean? Under the direction of a guy who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But there's bad apples, and there's devs that speak their mind, and in America, you know, free speech, whatever, say what's on your mind, blah, blah, blah. My issue is when there's developers that go out of their way to say things like this game isn't meant for you, or start saying a whole bunch of crazy shit on the internet when you're actively representing a product and a company that you're trying to make a profit off of, and you're trying to sell me on this game. But then when you are loud-mouthing a whole bunch of BS and you're telling me all A, B, C, and D, I'm sitting there like, whoa, first of all, you're crazy. Second of all, I'm not buying your game because I don't like the way you talk to me. And as petty as that sounds, a lot of people feel that way. I feel like, I mean, dude, why would you want a developer? And like I said, it's not every developer. A lot of developers, they're good boys and girls. They go and do their job. They know they have a job to do. They know they're trying to sell a product. They don't say anything, right? Good on them. But there's the bad apples that fall from the tree, and they're sitting here with this sense of entitlement saying, hey, fuck you, and fuck your belief, and this is what I believe in, and I'm going to be pushing this, or this game isn't made for you, or your criticism isn't criticism, it's just you being misogynistic and Nazi, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z, you know, whatever the fuck they want to say. And I'm sitting here like, hey, I'm just trying to give some feedback, and I'm just trying to make your game good so that I can buy it. You know, I'm trying to help you out, okay? You're the one with the job on the line, okay? And some of these people don't even lose their jobs. These people are representing a company, and they're trying to sell a product, and they say some outlandish shit online, and there's no consequence for it. And that blows my mind, first of all. Some of them, you know, there was an action taken, right? Good on them. But some of these people say this shit, and there's no repercussions. Like, they say it, and boom, they're still part of that company. They're going to be making the next game. And I'm sitting here like, dude, what? Like, this person, they're not the sole reason why a game failed. I'll never say that. But they definitely helped. These people definitely help when a game fails. 100%. And it blows my mind that these developers think they have the right to come at me and say, hey, fuck you, man. And I'm sitting here like, all right, man, you're not getting my money. You know, fuck your game, fuck your studio, and fuck you. That's how I see it. I'm not attacking any devs if they don't say anything. Once you come at me first, and once you come at people first with, like, hostility and just, like, you're not being a normal fucking person, when you come at me with hostility, I'm gonna reciprocate that, and I'm gonna come back at you with hostility as well. Like, I'm not gonna be nice. I'm not the one making the game. I'm not losing money because I'm not buying the game. I'm saving my money. I'm gonna go spend my money on a company that respects me as a consumer and as a customer that won't waste my time and my money. Like, if you want to say all this outlandish shit, go ahead. That's perfectly fine with me. I know who to look out for. That's the thing I love about the internet in this day and age is these people, and it's not just developers, regular people do it as well, right? But these people that are so outlandish online, and they start just acting fucking crazy, and they start saying some crazy shit, and I'm sitting here like, dude, I just want to play video games. I want to play a good, fun video game that's worth my time and my money. And then all this stuff that comes left and right, I'm like, whoa, thank you for pointing out, you know, to me what type of person you are, because now I'm just going to avoid your game. And that's how it is. And I'm not going to speak for everybody, just that's how I feel. And I just have a sense that a lot of people feel that way. That's just how I feel like. I know some of my friends definitely feel that way. So I'm just not a fan of how just the space has become in that sense. And like I said, it's not everybody, but there's bad apples and they show their true colors, and it's pretty unfortunate. But little tangent, I just wanted to get that out of the way. That's how I feel about these studios and what they've kind of sort of become and the steep decline that they've been on in the last couple years. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is another group of people that have essentially lost the plot and lost the purpose of essentially their job. Same as the developers, and that's game journalism. Now, let me start off by saying that I'm a college dropout, guys. I am terrible at academics. I was never good at it. I went to college for a year, sucked at it, didn't even realize what I wanted to do. I didn't know if what I was going to college for was what I really wanted to do with my entire life. So I dropped out, and to me, that's okay. You know, we all have our paths in life and everything like that. But when it comes to game journalism, when I read articles nowadays from all these different companies that, you know, are supposed to tell us essentially the news, right, about video games, they've essentially lost the entire plot. I will read an article, and it's always about something that is not the game itself. It's always these conversations that are sparked online, and they take these conversations and they run with it. It has nothing to do with the game. If it plays well, what's going on with the story, how is it written, is the game mechanics good, how is the world building, you know, scenery wise, is the background looking good, little micro things, how is the weapons, how is the character design, things like that. And, you know, granted, they still talk about that very little, very, very little, that some of these journalism websites talk about what matters most, the actual fucking game. A lot of these journalists, in my eyes, they don't know what the hell they're doing or what they're writing about. They are essentially just handpicking things that they either agree with or just read online, and they just know it'll get their views up, and they write about it. It has nothing to do with the game, nothing to do with anything of any sort in that field, right? Look at that article with Wukong. Black Myth Wukong, with the lack of woman representation in that video game when they probably only played the first 2 acts. There's women in that video game, and this has been proven, and, you know, people have already shat on, you know, whoever wrote that article. This is old news, right? I'm just bringing it up as an example, right? There is women in that game, but the thing about game journalists and these reviewers essentially is they don't even play the game. They play maybe like the first 10 hours, 15 hours, if that, right? They play the game. They're like, man, you know, this game is poop. This is how I feel about it, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, sure. But when these, like on Metacritic and these people reviewing these games and writing about these games, they gave Assassin's Creed Shadows a 100 and gave Ghost of Tsushima like a 60 or something around there. When that is insane. As someone who played Ghost of Tsushima and thoroughly enjoyed the game, I thought Ghost of Tsushima was a fantastic game. I'm excited for the next game to come out. You know, they definitely sold me. I was hooked on that game. I loved the stealth elements. I loved the action elements, the fighting mechanics, the story. Everything about that game was fantastic. Is it a 60? Absolutely not. I'd give it like an 85 to a 90 in my opinion. I really enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima. You know, the whole black and white mode where it looks like an old samurai movie that you can turn on and you can get really immersed in the world that way. Really cool. I love that game. And seeing these people score Assassin's Creed, which, to be fair, I haven't played, but I've been able to form my own opinion based on other people talking about the game that I genuinely trust, that aren't, you know, they're just other YouTubers who share the same opinion that I do, and I trust them when it comes to them playing a game and giving their thoughts about it, right? And when these people just straight up give a 100 to a game that is just objectively not a 100 is insane to me. I just genuinely cannot see how their brain is working in that way. I don't care about these other things that are coming, culture wars, social political issues. I don't care. You know, the only time I listen to that stuff is it tells me, hey, maybe I just shouldn't play this game. If it's already sparking up this much controversy before it even releases and people are arguing about it before people have even played a beta, I'm probably just not going to buy it. In all honesty, I'm just not going to buy it, because if all these arguments are happening before the game even releases and people aren't even talking about the game, I'm just turned off. I'm already turned off. I don't care. And that's just how it is. You know, like, I think game journalism and like these people that review games for these companies and everything like that, you know, like Metacritic and you know, all that kind of shit, I think they genuinely get me more upset than the developers. And they're the ones fucking up the games. You know what I mean? these people write about so much shit that doesn't matter or is just false. Like with the Wukong stuff, they were just wrong. You know, they're not even trying to tell the truth. They're just being lazy. It's the same as the devs. They're just lazy, and they just, in my eyes, don't know what the fuck they're doing anymore. They've lost the plot. That's what a lot of things like happening in this circle, in this community in general. Like, I'm not talking about just one game. I'm talking about the gaming community as a whole. A lot of us, dude, guys, we've lost the plot 100%. We have 100% lost the plot. Like, there's just so much going around game journalism in general, where they write like these entire articles, you know, about everything that I've said. And they bring all this other shit that doesn't involve the game, and it's just stupid. I just don't like it. It's insane. Like, I'm struggling to even talk about it because of how insane it is to me. It should be an easy thing. Like I said, I don't know how hard it is to be a journalist or how hard it is to write, you know, these these articles and shit like that, but it can't be that hard. There's no way. And obviously they're being influenced by other means, and they're bringing their own influence into their own writing, which is totally fine. That's what I'm doing. I'm giving you guys my opinion from my eyes, how I feel about the game industry and everything, right? It's all subjective. This is entirely my opinion, but I'm not representing anybody but myself. I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm doing this because I want to rant about it, because I'm passionate about video games, and I've been playing these games my entire life. So I want to get my opinion out, you know, and one way of getting my opinion out is your wallet. The best way to voice your opinion in this industry is with your wallet. Don't buy stuff. You know, don't give money to the companies that you think are doing you wrong, and it's easy, and it's been shown that it's working. I just really don't like what game journalism has become. I think it's not genuine. I feel like it was genuine in a sense. Now, I can't speak for, you know, back in my day, you know, because I don't really have a back in my day, right? But at least in the past, it was not nearly as bad with these controversies and all this crazy shit, man. It's so much. It literally kills it. It makes or breaks a game. It's not the game itself that makes or break it. It's these game journalists and these outspoken devs and the shitty marketing that kill these games. It's not even the game. Although the game is a factor when it releases, people play the game and they're like, man, all the stuff on top of, like, all these controversies on top of this game, and then now I'm actually playing the game, holy fuck. It's two things that combine together that just make a even worse experience. And it is just absolutely insane how we've evolved. We haven't even evolved into this. We're devolving. We, like, mentally, I feel like as a whole, we are devolving into, like, slop when it comes to the actual games themselves that are being made and the conversations we're having around these games. It's getting more brain dead by the day. It is insane. Like, open discussion, granted, the internet has never been, you know, a perfect place for open discussion and everybody respects each other. That's just not, I would be lying if that's how the internet was before this time, right? I would be absolutely lying. But people are so extra with everything now. And, you know, these game journalists are like, oh my god, you know, Wukong doesn't have woman representation. Oh, body tape A and B is being slandered by the chuds. And, you know, X, Y, and Z and all this shit. And I'm sitting here like, oh my god. There's good and bad on both sides. You know, there's a lot of people that go out of their way to find these devs and to find how they look like and to judge their physical appearance and, or, you know, stuff like that. And that's not cool. You know, these guys are just people trying to do their job. Unless, here's where my exception comes in, is when these people go out of their way to make you feel, they try to belittle you. They try to have this sense of entitlement, and if they start it, like, this is gonna sound kiddish, but if they start it, man, hey, everything's off the table. Hey, I'm gonna say what I want, right? But, you know, if these devs, they don't really say much, maybe they, like, say a couple things about the game, you know, just try to advertise it on their own socials and stuff like that, totally fine. But once you start trying to belittle your customers and everything in the sense, dude, that is not good. Like, it's not good for you, it's not good for your company, and I, like, in all honesty, I don't know why you're still at that company. If like, these people have a reputation for that shit, like, I don't know why they're still there. And some of them do get let off. Look at Assassin's Creed Shadows. From what I've seen on the story, it doesn't look great. I mean, I'm not a fan. I just don't, like, the way that they went in terms of like the direction with like both characters, not a fan from what I've seen. I can guarantee you, grab 10 people from a Discord, have 10 of those people, they're like the nerdiest, dorkiest dudes. They love Japanese culture, they love anime, they love Assassin's Creed, like the old games. Get those 10 guys, split them in half, have 5 of them develop the story, and just essentially write the entire script for the game, and then have the other 5 have coverage on it. You are going to have a perfectly fine game. You're going to have those dudes. I know that's not... I mean, Ubisoft has 20,000 fucking people working on their games. That's why it's the bloated slop that it is. But, you know, I'm just using this as an example. Separate those 2 dudes, or those 2 groups of people, and, dude, they will make a fantastic game. And that's the case for indie developers, man. Indie developers are quite literally working by themselves without publishers, you know, without representation, without marketing, anything like that. All they have is the internet and word of mouth, and they make games that people enjoy and they run with it. They make so much money, dude. More money than these AAA devs are ever going to make right now. I can guarantee that. With the amount of money that they put in and the amount of money that they're getting from it is like a major profit, while these AAA studios are putting in a fuck ton of money, millions and millions upon millions of dollars, and they're barely breaking profit. Barely. And they need to make way more than what they put into the game. They got to make more, because it's not just the development cycle, it's the marketing from their publishment. It's, you know, the beta testing from all these creators, and they put them on live stream. You know, they're sponsoring these creators and these live streamers. There's so much that goes into it money-wise that these companies spend money on to advertise their game. And they barely break even, barely for most of these games nowadays. Now, I know I kind of went off script, but like, that's what I mean though. Like, game journalism is I'm grouping them with these crazy sloppy devs. Like, they're just as bad. And you know why? Because they want to keep a good reputation with these developers, so that they can get the review copies, and so that they can review the game early, and so they can get ahead of the curve. That's why they do it. They want to keep good relations with them, and so they pretty much say what the developers want them to say, so they can please them and the minority of people that are like, you know, the loud minority, right? And it's just insane, dude, how much we've lost in terms of the plot, man. I just really don't get it. It throws me off so much when I read some of these articles, and I'm sitting there like, dude, what? I just wanted to quickly pause because I had a third segment of the video from the beginning where I described the quote-unquote like dungeon, which was essentially just going to be social media, you know, things like Twitter and Reddit, and talk about the space that it is when it comes to gaming discussion and all the gremlins and all that stuff. And I don't know, man. I was sitting here editing the video, listening to everything, chopping up, you know, my talking points and stuff like that. And it just seemed almost draining to me listening to myself talk about all these things. And yes, I'm rambling on and I'm getting quite passionate, I guess you can say, and kind of, you know, getting my blood boil, I guess. I'm not really sure how to describe it. Pretty much, it's a lot of negativity in this video, which is just me ranting about things that I dislike. And I just was listening to the third section that I recorded, and in all honesty, I just didn't like it personally, so I just don't think I'm going to put this part in the video. I'm just going to skip ahead, and I talked towards the end about games that I enjoy and indie games that I've found to be enjoyable and that I sort of kind of recommend. I give a quick list. So I just want to let you guys know that's why I'm going to take this part out of the video. I just personally didn't like what I was talking about. It's just three subjects of negativity all meshed into one in this long-formed video is draining to me, and I feel like it's going to be draining to a listener. So I just wanted to take it out. There's really no point to go into why people are on social media, and it's just a lot of people who are angry all the time, and you know, they live a sad life waking up every morning and complaining and arguing with people with these long Twitter threads and everything like that. So, and I kind of already touched on it with development studios and outspoken devs and game journalists and stuff like that, kind of taking to social media to kind of push certain things and even create more discourse online. So I just wanted to completely scrap it. I just want to let you guys know. So I'm just gonna cut this part out, and then we'll take it to the the more positive note towards the end of the video. Okay? And I did pull up a couple games that I've been playing recently that I personally enjoy. I kind of want to do this maybe at the end of my videos, to kind of give you guys my recommendations, like quick recommendations to like maybe games to look out for. Primarily, some of them are indie games, most of them are actually, just to kind of like spread awareness. Dude, a lot of these indie games are fantastic, guys. Like, indie devs they have evolved, man, with like what they can do and what they're given. And some of these guys, I mean, like Schedule 1, dude, is the best, most recent example. One guy made the game. At its core, it's a fun game. It feels like you can relate to the developer. You know, there's a whole bunch of goofy stuff, a lot of stuff that I relate with, and it's just overall really good game. And like, I just wanted to just quickly just get off my chest as well. You know, I'll be making reviews of like a lot of indie games as well, but I just kind of want to give you guys like a list of some of my favorites. I know RuneScape isn't like an indie game, but it's just a game I've been playing recently. The survival game, RuneScape Dragon Wilds. That's been a really fun game. I was a really big fan of Valheim. Valheim was a fantastic game, and it has a lot of similar elements. So that's what I've been playing as of recently. I finished first Berserker Kazan. Really good Souls-like for what it is. I had a lot of fun playing it. Pretty decent story. You know, it's more of like a... It's more like an action, I can't think of the... Jesus Christ, dude. This has put a toll on me, I'm gonna be honest. In terms of, like, yapping for this long. But it's like a hack and slash, right? Souls-like type of thing. Same with Liza P. Liza P was fantastic. I really liked the spin of Pinocchio they did and everything like that. Really fun game. It's probably evident to you guys now that I'm a really big Souls-like fan. I love Souls-likes, dude. Like, From Software games, they're, like, cemented as, like, really good games. I know they're gonna be good. But, you know, also, all these other games that are stemming from it, that are trying to be Souls-likes, right? Some of them are hit or miss, but a lot of them that I've been playing recently have been pretty damn good. Not like 100s, you know, but like, you know, like 85s, you know, like 70, 85 range, right? They've been, like, good games. They've been worth it for me. And one game that I do really want you guys to check out, you know, everybody that stumbles across this video, is a game called Fly Night. If you guys haven't tried Fly Night, I highly, highly, highly recommend you guys play Fly Night. It's a really short game. It's about 8 hours long, but it's also only $8 from last time I checked. And it's like $8 or $10. And Fly Night is fantastic. It's like a first-person Souls-like with RuneScape, like, nostalgia, like, sort of graphics. And pretty much what you do is you just play as a fly, and you're supposed to just, you know, kill these bugs that are, like, terrorizing your fly nation or whatever, right? And you can chop off limbs and stuff like that, you know, get weapons. You can go fishing. Fishing's always a plus for most people. If you can fish in a game, a lot of people are probably going to like it. So I heavily recommend you guys play Fly Night, in all honesty. If I'm going to recommend an indie game, I'm going to recommend Fly Night. Look, granted, it's a short game. I know the developers, they're either working on like an endless mode and like stuff like that, or like New Game Plus. But for the price, I mean, $8 or $10. Oh my god. $8 or $10. You know, it's not that bad. I highly recommend it. It's one of those gems that I had to actively search and find. And, you know, I'm really glad I did find it. I had a lot of fun with that game, even though it wasn't too long. You know, other games like web fishing, you know, like, simple game. You just play as like a little animal and you just fish. Relaxing, right? I like those type of games when I'm not doing anything. Those are great. Death Must Die is probably one of my favorite roguelikes, personally. Death Must Die is really cool. I really like the characters and like the different levels and stuff like that that they have so far. Melatonin, if you guys like rhythm games, Melatonin is a really cool rhythm game that I've played, where the art style is so unique, at least to me, and like the story behind it is really cool. You know, you're just a guy who is, you know, having, you know, some sort of like sleeping troubles, and then in the game you go throughout your dreams about your different struggles, like with rent, and, you know, with exercise, and with like your romantical self, right? Like all these different songs and levels in this game have these certain themes, and it's really cool to go through them because it's all set based around that theme. So I really enjoy Melatonin. Another Souls-like, another Crab's Treasure, really goofy game, but also really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing that game. It was just a fun Souls-like game. You know, you just play as a crab, you get different shells from the ground, whether it's like a can or like a whole bunch of shit like that. You know, there's a mode where you just put a gun on your back and just like one-shot everything. You know, it's fun. Games are meant to be fun, and these games are genuine fun in my eyes. Another Souls-like, No Rest for the Wicked. You know, really cool. I really like the sort of like gritty, you know, From Software, like dark fantasy kind of like style that they got going on in that game. Really fun. I enjoyed it. You know, I put it up there with, you know, First Berserker Kazan and Liza P for me, honestly. I genuinely had a blast playing it for me. And then, you know, just another one, this last one that I got down just from like just quick thinking, right, is this Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. I put Grand Blue Fantasy Relink in the same sort of category as Monster Hunter Wilds, in all honesty, where I think I enjoy like these MMO lights more than regular MMOs. It's where it's a lot more single player co-op-y oriented and sort of more mission based with some exploration elements to it. And there's like a social hub, right, where you can like interact with players. I think I like that a lot more than MMOs. I feel like a lot of new MMOs, like I've tried a ton, like, you know, like New World and all that kind of stuff. It gets very repetitive, and the world is almost too big for its own good, even though it's an MMO, which is kind of weird, I guess, to say. But I've just been liking more of like the focused experiences where they're more condensed. And I think Grand Blue Fantasy Relink and Monster Hunter Wilds and games of the sort do really well at that, where they provide like, you know, you're in the action, you're getting the loot you want, and then there's also exploration elements, and there's like fishing and like wilds, and then there's like the social hub that came on like Title Update 1 and stuff like that. So I consider those games like MMO lights, where they have more of a strong emphasis on like single player co-op experience, but they have like those MMO elements socially and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. But those are just some quick examples, and just games that I personally really love and enjoy, and then also games that have obviously statistically succeeded, you know, over the years. And I just want to kind of express to some of like the indie games that may not be as well known, like Fly Night specifically. I don't know, dude, something about that game, I just love it so much. It was a blast playing. Like I said, a short experience. You know, the devs are either working on more of it or a second game. I haven't really checked their Discord in a while, but fantastic game for the price, man. It was just a fun experience. And that's what gaming is all about, right? Gaming is all about enjoying your time, escaping reality for a little bit, and, you know, just putting all the stress and all the buildup you have kind of like in the back of your head, and you just sit there and either play with your friends, have a good laugh, or you indulge yourself in a well-written story and get attached to some characters and just escape reality, man. That's what video games has always been for me. And I think the reason why I even made this video to begin with is because I've come to a realization that our community and our space is slowly becoming less, and whether that's coming from the developers themselves, the publishers, the journalists, or, you know, just my peers, it is extremely unfortunate. And all I do is I just want good games, man. Honestly, that's all I want. I just want good games, and there's a ton of good games still out there. It's not like gaming's dead. I'll never accept people saying that gaming's dead. That's not true whatsoever. You know, I just listed over 20 games that are fantastic and worth your time and your money, 100%, at least for me. And I heavily advise, you know, that you either check out some videos that go into detail about it, or, you know, picking up the game for yourself if it goes on sale. So that's all I want, man, in a video game. But, you know, I appreciate your guys' time. I'm not too sure how long this video is going to be. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a pretty lengthy one. I don't think my videos are going to be this long normally. I'll see what happens when I go and edit them. But, you know, I appreciate the patience. You know, if you guys made it to the end of the video, I know I'm not perfect when it comes to speech and getting my point across, but, you know, I do have a lot of opinions that I do want to share and, you know, kind of get my voice out, because I do love this hobby, man. I love this hobby a lot, and I want to have good video games to play, and I want to, you know, I want other people to play and have good video games as well, you know? So I do appreciate it. yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover, at least for my first video. Kind of like the floor plan, I guess, for my channel. This is kind of what is going to be expected. So I'll be making more focused videos about certain video games and companies and stuff like that, and news around that's happening. But for now, I just wanted to kind of get everything out of my chest at once about how I've been feeling. So anyways, I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for watching and listening. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Appreciate it. Peace.